Getting 100 victories out of 100 battles is not the maximum of skill. Winning the enemy without the need to fight, that is the maximum triumph. It's a Sun Tzu's famous citations, written in the heart of war. The Consequences of the War is an evocative oil canvas by Rubens of 1638 kept in Palazzo Pitti in Florence. In this picture, Rubens presented the atrocious horrors consumed during the 30 Years' War, through a vivid allegorical key, characterized by sudden contrast of color, which contribute to the frantic rhythm of the scene. In the center, an athletic Mars wields a saber and is torn from the arms of Venus by the Fury, symbol of discord between peoples. The god of war, in his gate, destroys harmony and charity. The first represented as a woman with a broken lute, and the second as a mother with a child. But war also ravages the comforts built by man. This concept is depicted by the character in the lower right corner, facing the ground, while holding the tools of the architect. In the background of the right side, between the dense smoke of the battle, you can see two monstrous presences, the plague and the famine. Shifting attention to the left side of the work, behind Venus, one is struck by the despair of the woman with the black mantle, which dramatically raises her eyes and arms to heaven. She is Europe torn apart by the wars of her own people. Behind her, a child holding a globe with a cross symbolizes abandoned Christianity. On the far left, you can see the Temple of Janus with the doors wide open. In ancient Rome, they remained open only in the time of war. In this canvas, Rubens, although not depicting armies, duels, destroyed cities, manages to involve the man, causing him to reflect on the consequences of the war. The 100 Years' War was a conflict between the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of France, which lasted, not continuously, from 1337 to 1453, and which ended with the expulsion of English from all the continental territories. The war has an extraordinary historical importance, such as to be used as a reference for the end of the Middle Age. It marked the height of tension between France and England. The war is modern because for the first time we have a war between sovereign states. In the 14th century, there is the centralization power in the hands of one person who must not account for feudal realities. And in addition, there is the construction of a bureaucratic apparatus. The War of the Hundred is for the contention of the territories and uses an army. It begins to ritualize what before it was carried out in an unorganized manner. In this video extracted from Game of Thrones, we see the arrival of the...
All my life, I wanted to be Jon Stark.
Say the word and you will be. Kneel before me, lay your sword at my feet. Pledge me your service and you'll rise again as Jon Stark, Lord of Winterfell.
I don't doubt it, Your Grace. But I'm a brother of the Night's Watch. I pledge them my life, my honor, my sword.
We'll make you a Stark with the stroke of a pen.
It's the first thing I ever remember wanting. A daydream that my father would ask the king. Just like that, I'll never be the bastard of Winterfell again.
I'm Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. My place is here.
I'm giving you the chance to avenge your family.
Maurice Bolton's the Warden of the North. Murdered my brother. We swore to be the Watchers on the Wall. We can't watch the wall with 50 men.
But I swore a sacred vow at the Cotswood. I pledged my life to the Night's Watch.
Night's Watch! With me!
coming with it. We can't face it alone.
For the watch.
For the watch.
Another aspect of the 100 Years' War are the weapons used during the war. For example, the crossbow, the longbow, and the halberd, which is a two-handed pole weapon, were widely used during the 100 Years' War. And because of the use of ranged weapons, armies were mostly made of infantry and not of knights. Infantry are foot soldiers. In the picture here we can see a crossbow, which is a ranged weapon. On the other hand, during the Middle Age, knights used to follow a moral code of conduct called the Code of Chivalry. A few examples of these rules are knights should respect all weaknesses, and they should never lie, they should be generous, and they should love the country in which they were born.
Don Quixote, the end of the chivalry and the beginning of modern age. It can be considered the first modern novel. Here, bizarrely mixed both elements of the picaresque genre and the epic chivalry novel. Don Quixote opened up to modernity by representing a reality in crisis and fighting for truth even if one is destined to lose. The art of war in the Dark Century. The art of war is perfected more and more thanks to the Second Industrial Revolution. New, more precise and efficient weapons are born that are built in factories. War is fought in trenches over very long periods, contrary to the expectation. Modern warfare is unexpected, merciless, and does not follow the laws of combat.
We have gone from a regulated war between defined sovereign states to a type of war without any rule that involves the whole world, as it is despecialized, that is without a defined battlefield. This type of war affects the entire global plan, as there are no participants, spaces, and rules defined for the conflict. Iraqi President Saddam Hussein ordered the invasion and occupation of neighboring Kuwait in early August 1990. Alarmed by these actions, fellow Arab powers such as Saudi Arabia and Egypt called on the United States and other Western nations to intervene. Hussein defied the United Nations Security Council demands to withdraw from Kuwait by mid-January 1991, and the Persian Gulf War began with a massive US-led air offensive known as Operation Desert Storm. After 42 days of relentless attacks by the Allied coalition in the air and on the ground, US President George Bush declared a ceasefire on February 28. By that time, most Iraqi forces in Kuwait had either surrendered or fled. According to the peace terms that Hussein subsequently accepted, Iraq would recognize Kuwait's sovereignty and get rid of all its weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. Though the Gulf War was recognized as a decisive victory for the coalition, Kuwait and Iraq suffered enormous damage, and Saddam Hussein was not forced from power. In justifying his invasion of Kuwait in August 1919, Saddam Hussein claimed it was an artificial state carved out of the Iraqi coast by Western colonialists. In fact, Kuwait had been internationally recognized as a separate entity before Iraq itself was created by Britain under a League of Nations mandate after World War I.
The Yugoslav wars were a series of separate but related ethnic conflicts, wars of independence and insurgencies, fought in the former Yugoslavia from 1991 to 2001, which led to the breakup of the Yugoslav Federation in 1092. Its constituent republics declared independence despite unresolved tension between ethnic minorities in the new countries, fueling the wars. Most of the wars ended through peace accords, involving full international recognition of the new states, but with a massive human cost and economic damage to the region. Often described as the Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II, the wars were marked by many war crimes including genocide, crimes against humanity and rape. The Bosnian genocide was the first European crime to be formally classified as genocidal in chapter since World War II, and many key individual participants in it were subsequently charged with the war crimes. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia was established by the UN to prosecute these crimes. The outcome of the Yugoslav wars was the final dissolution of Yugoslavia. 9/11 attack. The September 11 attack, often referred to as 9/11, were a series of 4 coordinated terrorist attacks by the Wahhabi terrorist group of Al-Qaeda against the United States on the morning of Tuesday, September 11, 2001. The attacks resulted in 2,977 fatalities, over 20,000 injuries, and substantially long-term health consequences, in addition to at least 10 billion in infrastructure and property damage. It is the deadliest terrorist attack in human history, and the single deadliest incident for firefighters and law enforcement officers in the history of the United States, with 343 and 72 killed, respectively. 4 passenger airliners, which had departed from airports in the southern United States, bound for California, were hijacked by 19 Al-Qaeda terrorists. 2 of the planes, American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175, crashed into the north and the south tower, respectively, of the World Trade Center complex in Lower Manhattan. Within an hour and 42 minutes, both 110-story towers collapsed.